Well, let's go here next because I can't wait to talk to you about this because, since we got on electoral politics and you brought up the far right, this transitions into yesterday, Richard Spencer, or maybe it was 2 days ago, but recently Richard Spencer said he is going to be voting for Joe Biden. And you had my favorite tweet of the Twitterverse, at least that I've seen. I can't say all the Twitterverse because I don't see every single tweet that gets published. But out of all the tweets I've seen, you were my favorite because you tweeted, Joe Biden is a Richard Spencer Democrat. Right? That was
yes. And I like doing that all the time.
That was funny. That was hilarious.
My boy Paul came up with those lines.
Well, good job, Paul.
I like expanding on those because it's
Why
a fun.
Didn't Paul, wait. Why didn't Paul tweet it? Why did you tweet it?
We always tweet different variations of it, right?
Oh, okay.
So I tweet like Kamala Harris is a Steve Mnuchin Democrat, right?
Okay.
I tweet that Nancy Pelosi is a Margaret Thatcher Democrat, and these are funny jokes. But the whole point of it is I'm trying to it's more serious than a lot of people think it is because I'm drawing parallels. The whole point is a lot of people. There's some people that is acknowledged as being bad, and it's not a question that they're bad. But then there are other people who are just as terrible as those people, like Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, but they're not considered bad. So when I do these parallels, it's not just simple, hey, I'm saying this guy is like a bad person. I'm bringing the parallels together. So when I say Joe Biden is a Richard Spencer Democrat, what I mean by that is that Richard Spencer may be trolling with his support of Joe Biden. But who will Richard Spencer be proud of more than Joe Biden? Because who done more damage to the Black community over the last 40 years as a public servant other than Joe Biden? There is a question, who done more damage to the Black community, Joe Biden or Donald Trump? So if you're Richard Spencer, do you want someone in charge who's a bumbling fool, who's incompetent at suppressing the Black community? Someone who, even though he may be full of shit, Trump go out and he brags about Black employment numbers. Meanwhile, Joe Biden, he has plans implemented that suppresses the Black community, like the crime bill, the bankruptcy bill, which I've been personally affected by. That's a story for another day. People will ask me why I'm so mad at the Democratic Party. That's something that affected me. That's something that affected almost every person I know. These policies, the trickle-down economics that Joe Biden pushes. So Donald Trump has done a lot of damage to the Black community. Republican parties have done a lot of damage to the Black community. But Black wealth tanked under Barack Obama and Joe Biden because they adapt Republican-like policies during the housing crisis. Now, what liberals say all the time, I say, hey, yo, Joe Biden and Barack Obama tanked Black wealth. Oh, well, George Bush was in there before, and he led to the financial situation that led to that. That's true, but George Bush did not force Barack Obama to bail out the banks instead of Black homeowners. Did George Bush hold a gun to Barack Obama's hand and force him to bail out the banks? Did he hold a gun to Barack Obama and the Democratic Party head when they did increase minimum wage during the whole time Barack Obama was president? So once again, that's a theme I always go to because I know who my enemy is. So it's a joke when I say Joe Biden is a Richard Spencer Democrat. But you see, there's also truth to that because I layer that with Joe. There's a reason why Spencer would like him, even if he's halfway trolling, because he knows that Joe Biden and Kamala the cop will do his bidding when it comes to suppressing the marginalized classes, and the white liberal class will be quiet while he's doing it. So that's the best ally that Richard Spencer can ask for, right? Like, why would he side with the loud MAGA idiots instead of the liberal class that doing the work for them? Instead of hearing my story, well, I could tell them why.
This is the mic, man. This is you.
I could tell them my story, but instead of doing that, they mute me. They block me. They don't care. Bro, when I tell them that Joe Biden still support the new Jim Crow, and he refuses to legalize marijuana, and that will lock up Black people for more prison labor, they legitimately don't care. I'll bring this up in good faith with them. Like, guys, we gotta do something. Help put Joe Biden. They're like, no, they don't care. So I'm like, bro, if they approach this in a different situation, I wouldn't have the takeaway I did. Imagine if they gave the mic to Nina Turner. Imagine if they gave the mic to Cornel West instead of John Kasich. Then I might be more easy on the Democrat Party. But what reason do I have to be easy on them, Ron? I have no reason.
You're asking the wrong guy.
I'm just saying that's my.
I don't have an answer for you, my friend.
But I thought I can rant on this kind of stuff all day. So it's like this is the kind of stuff I talk about. I want people to understand. So when I make that tweet, I'm glad that people like it. I'm glad people find it funny, but there's a point to it. Every single time I make one of those names, there's a point to it. Like I remember I had one. One of my favorite ones was Kamala Harris is a Steve Mnuchin Democrat, and then I'll bring that up, and then liberals will get so mad at me. And I love this name. I love putting on names out there because it forces them to ask that question. Because they're like, why would he even say that?
Well,
like, oh, since you asked.
well, here's the thing. I think that some people that ask that question, they genuinely don't know. They're genuinely asking that question. And a lot of them get pissed off at you, or get pissed off at me, or get pissed off at whoever else. But I think some of them actually kind of have a moment and they take a step back and then they show up to a march and then they sign up for the DSA or the SA or the Green Party or whatever else. Or they sign up for, a climate action group, or they sign up for, whatever it is, their local Black Lives Matter chapter, whatever it may be. They realize that, oh, this is a systemic disease. This isn't so much Republican versus Democrat as much as it's us versus the freaking oligarchy.
And the people who criticize me for being divisive, because I get that criticism, especially from the progressives who fold for Joe Biden. Man, you people will be surprised how many messages I get from people who former resist, vote blue, no matter who. I get messages from people like, man, you actually kind of help open my eyes a little bit. I get messages from right wingers. I get messages from right wingers that say, hey, I don't like Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic Party, but actually you're kind of progressive and I get in line. I literally, I don't want to post all those people because I like to leave it private, but I posted a few of them. I get those kind of messages where I get right wingers just say, yo, your style of politics, I'd be more for it. I don't like the Democratic Party. So the people who think I'm divisive because I go after them, their favorite oligarch of choice, who's the real divisive one? The person that unite the working class, or the people that want to just call people deplorables and engage in partisan politics? Who's the divisive one? Is it me or is it them?
Yeah, I mean, it's like you're doing the bidding of the establishment, really, by having sacred cows. You should criticize the system as a whole and make strategic choices. And, my position has always been and will continue to be, if you voter shame from any direction, you're just completely missing the big picture, because the problem is the system that has forced these two horrific choices upon us, not the voters who have to figure out how to deal with it and have to make the judgment call, one way or another. So it's like, when you're voter shaming, it's the least constructive thing you can possibly do at any point, the least constructive thing. And I've gotten some of those messages too, man. I mean, I've gotten those messages of people, hey, Ron, I'm kind of on the right, but I like you because you call out the corruption where you see it. You don't care what's next to their name. You don't have sacred cows. You call out corruption where you see it. And I'm more open to progressive ideas now because of shows like yours. And to me, it's like that's a much bigger win than just patting your echo chamber on the back.
Yes, exactly. And that's what the game is about. It's about winning over the other side and forming the coalition. Because I think we have the coalition. It's just our biggest problem is the media continue to trying to separate us and divide and conquer. So that's my main goal when it comes to unite the left and all that. So and that's why I try to get across my page. I'm like ruthless to the power, but when it comes to everyday people, I want to have those conversations. I want to win them over and bring them on my side. So I think that's the main goal should be.
Let's just stick on the Richard Spencer thing for a hot minute. So here's what he had to say about it. Liberals are clearly more competent. This is Richard Spencer speaking. The MAGA alt-right movement is over. I made mistakes. Trump is an obvious disaster, but mainly the paradigm contained flaws that we are now able to perceive, and it needs to end. So be patient. We'll have another day in the sun. We need to recover and return in the new form. I I think what he's basically saying there is, hey, there will be another time for overt white supremacy. We'll have another moment where we can be overtly white supremacists, but we need to subtly be white supremacists for a little while until we kind of rebrand. Because he's the guy who puts on the suit. That's what Richard Spencer does, which is nothing original. That's the same thing David Duke did, and the same thing David Duke continues to do. And that's part of their, that's why David Duke was having people, hey, infiltrate, become a police officer. I mean, they've been doing that organized for years. Here's what Elsie says. I will never flip on my fundamental principles. My principles were never voting for the supposed lesser of two evils or sovereignty government, walking into certain defeat, blah, blah, blah. He has a quote there. Now, he says he regrets voting for Trump following the killing of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani. He did not like the interventionism either. He was against the Trump administration launching an airstrike on a Syrian airbase in 2017. So I guess he's against some imperialism, which I guess a broken clock is right twice a day. Isn't that the age-old saying? you know, but so I guess the reason I wanted to read this, some people are saying that he is just straight up trolling. Do you think he's trolling?
I think it's a combination of both, because in order to joke or in order to /troll, there has to be a little bit of truth in it. Like, you can't just have a successful troll that's not any truth in it at all. So what I find funny about reading that and reading his statements is there's no love lost between me and Richard Spencer, but you know, this is how the right wing continue to move the Overton window to the right, is that they have these line in the sand moments where they tell the Republican establishment, okay, we're not going with this at all, and we will not support you if you don't support our ideology. And they actually will believe that. That's what the basis of the Tea Party movement, that was essentially the Koch brothers take over, but that's still the fundamental idea, is that they actually draw the line in the sand. They tell the Republican establishment, okay, you're into what Spencer was saying. He said Trump is too pro-war. He is not effective communicator for the white supremacist movement. So we got to abandon them. Right. Now, this is the problem I have with the left, and this is what the problem I have with the liberal class. What is that line in the sand for the left and the Democratic Party? Like, what is it will cause them to ever turn against the Democratic Party? Because if they're willing to back a guy like Biden, who was admittedly one of the most conservative Democrats in the 90s in the Senate, during the era of the king of neoliberals, Bill Clinton, Joe Biden was the most conservative.
You know, if you called him that, he'd think it was a compliment.
Yes, he would love it. He would love it. I love stroking their ego. So when I saw that they fell behind on Biden and the fact that he was a vocal advocate of the Iraq War, he still don't support legalizing marijuana, I'm like, oh, there's no line. There's nothing that the liberals wouldn't be okay with. They are rehabilitating George Bush, for example. So my response to the Richard Spencer, I'm not, like I said, I didn't forget about the original point, is that this is why the right is successful, because they have those lines in the sand that they draw, and they're able to move their leadership to the right by drawing the lines of sand. So what Spencer is saying, that he won't support MAGA, he won't support the Republican establishment unless they change. And that's how you get the party to move. You got to let them know that you're not willing to vote for them. And the progressive movement and liberals refuse to do that with the Democrat Party. So what happens? The right wing and the right wing activists, no matter what you want to call them, which I can call them a lot of names, but let's call them right wing activists. They successfully move the party to the right by doing what Richard Spencer is doing. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party follows them, even though there's a recent poll that showed that Joe Biden only has 5% Republican support. Yeah. So what is that about? So they're not moving right to get Republican voters. They're being dragged by the Republican
They're moving
Party.
right for their donors. See, you're absolutely right in everything you say. The one problem with that, and it's not like a problem as in like what you're saying, but I think the one problem structurally we have is, everything you're saying about what they do on the right, where they're just like, okay, we're not going to support you. And that's the same thing the Tea Party did. They just said, hey, we're not going to support you and we're not voting for you. The problem with that on the other side, the Democratic side, is, I would argue, and I don't think this is anything other than the stark truth at this point, and I don't think you can sugarcoat it in any way. The problem is the Democrats' first concern is not winning. So where is your power? And I truly, I mean, I used to say that half jokingly, but it's the truth. I mean, their first priority is making sure the donors are happy with what they're doing. Their second priority, which goes into upholding that first priority, is to make sure no progressives get through. Make sure nobody who's actually a threat to their apple cart gets through. They spent over, I think, was it 15 or 50, but it was millions of dollars. I forget if it was 1.5 or 5.0, but they spent millions of dollars trying to stop any progressive challengers. Right now, they're doing in the Senate, they're trying to have, so their whole thing about we're not going to go against incumbents. Well, that's BS, because right now they're all going against Ed Markey in the Senate, trying to get a corporate shill Joe Kennedy in there. So that's a bunch of BS. Nancy Pelosi just full-throatedly endorsed Joe Kennedy. So I think the problem with just doing that on the other side, just saying, well, we're not going to vote or this or that. Well, the problem is winning's not their first priority anyway. It's their third. First priority, make sure the donors are happy. Second priority, make sure progressives don't get through, because that would be something that would upset the donors. Third priority, if we can beat a Republican or two while upholding priorities 1 and 2, great. If we can't, apple cart keeps it rolling. Do you think, I hope Nancy Pelosi loses in November, but if she doesn't and she sticks around, do you think she would be bummed out if Donald Trump won re-election? Or do you think she would just see big dollar signs? Like dollar signs would just be dancing around her head? Because Trump is great for fundraising, baby, and they know that.
Yes, it's the revolving door, and that's why we having a hard time making changes. And this is why I tell people we gotta make the harsh difference between the progressive wing of the party and the neoliberal Democratic wing of the party. So I get very upset when I see progressive leaders butting up with the neoliberal politicians. So, for example, when I see the squad will praise Nancy Pelosi and people are like, oh, they gotta play politics. I'm like, no, you can't do that. we gotta let people know there is a solid difference between one wing of the party and the other wing of the party. There's one wing of the party that does not support Medicare for all, despite the fact that 88% Democrats support it. Mm-hmm. Now, this goes back to my point I made earlier about Richard Spencer and why the right-wing activists are so successful in changing their party. Can you imagine a right-wing candidate that ran that was anti-Second Amendment? Now, that's something that's like 90% support in the Republican Party. The idea of that happening is inconceivable. Meanwhile, on the Democratic Party, you can have someone who's opposed to legalized marijuana and Medicare for all, which has support similar to
pro-life. Second Amendment. You can have pro-life. Tim Kaine was pro-life.
So that's the problem. Like, at what point do we draw the line in the sand ourselves? And right now we have progressive leaders who are playing defense, and they are muddying the waters between them and the Democratic politicians.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your